identify with this too, because as I grew up, I always felt like I was not good enough because I didn't quite fit in. I know I've hit the growth spurt, you guys. I'm 56. What you see is what you get. I'm not going to grow. I'm 5'4" and a half, and that's right, a half. Just give me all mine, right? So. I've always had little man's complex, right? But not only was I too short, I was always little, always small, frail. And in my neighborhood, man, it was not cool to be little because all the boys judged each other's self-worth by their athletic prowess, how gifted they were physically. And I could never hit a baseball real far or throw a football or shoot hoops or do anything like that. And we would play pickup games in this alley behind our apartment building. And they would always make the best two boys have to be on opposite teams, the best two athletes. And they would pick their teams from all the other boys. And we crowd around in a circle. We'd be jumping up, pick me. They say, I'll take Teddy, I'll take Jimmy, take Bobby, I'll take Ralph, I'll take... And they would always get to the end, and it was always me and some fat guy.
Nice.
And somebody would say, all right, I'll take Ronnie. And they don't know how that made me feel when they said that. Like I was a burden. Like I was less than. I've always hated wearing glasses. I've worn glasses since I was in the 2nd grade, and I've suffered from those names you guys used to call, Four Eyes, Poindexter, Mr. Peabody, the Professor. I've always hated being so black. And I don't mean being black, but damn, it's so black. Even black people discriminated against me. I grew up in the, in the 50s and the 60s before James Brown came out with I'm black and I'm proud, and I never really wanted to be white. I just wanted to be high yellow, with good hair, right? I could go on and on with the things that I hated about myself. This ugly body that I'm imprisoned in, this drunk father, we're poor, we're on but shoot, I needed a drink. Shoot. When I was growing up, man, to help me escape from the prison of my thinking. But I could not drink because I did not want to become my father. And I had to find something to help me escape. And the thing that I found while growing up that helped me escape from who and where and what I was were books. I became addicted to reading. Libraries became my sanctuary because when I would read, I would escape. And I was transported to distant lands. I was no longer on 108th and Central and Watts. I was somewhere in Europe, in Paris, or in London. I used to love spy novels, espionage, because the heroes were just the opposite. They weren't dull and poor and weak. They were guys who were suave and debonair, guys who would rescue the world and get the girl at the end of the story. They just knew karate. Hi! Look at that, no lessons. Just and I would love being transformed into these characters, and I would just escape into these novels, into these books. But you know something? I understand, looking back on my experience, anything I've ever used in life that helped me escape from who and what I was, my disease is progressive in nature. Because anything I've ever used, after a while, it doesn't seem to have the same effect. And I require more. And I need something that's quicker, something that's faster, something that's stronger. And after a few years of reading those library books, they didn't get me out of myself the same way. And I needed to find something else, and I discovered comic books. Because the stories are shorter and quicker, and the heroes are bigger and stronger and grander. There was a line of comics when I was growing up made by a company called DC Comics. They made Superman and Batman, the Green Arrow, Green Lantern, Hawkman, the Atom, the Justice League of America. They had a book called The Legion of Superheroes. And I became a superhero named Mon-El. He may not look black to you, but he was. And I would go in my mother's towel and I would get I would go in her closet and get one of her towels. And I would put that towel around my neck. And that towel became a cape. And I would go out on 108th Street. And I would get a running start. And I would jump and I would fly down 108th Street. Now, I truly don't know if you know anything about Watts. But imagine this little skinny hookhead, I forgot to share that with you, but this little skinny hookhead kid running down the street with his arms stretched out in front of him with a towel around me. And these little tough guys were just looking at me like, look at this fool. And you would have thought that I would have been scared of doing that, right? Scared of being teased, of ridiculed, of all of these things. But you know something? When I put on that towel, when I put on that cape, I felt no fear. Because you see, it made me feel strong. It made me feel heroic. It made me feel powerful. And even back then, lack of power was my dilemma. And I was willing to go to any lengths to feel the sense of power. Progressive disease, however. After a few years of running around the neighborhood with that towel, I didn't feel so cool. And I had to find something else to help me get out of myself. And my family purchased a small little black and white television. And I fell in love with TV. They used to call me the human TV guide because I would be glued to the television every day looking at it, and neighbors would come by and I could hear Ralph and them in the background. The door would open and the neighbors would come in and they would say, hey man, watch this. Ronnie, Wednesday, 8 o'clock. And when I move and I say 8 o'clock, oh, channel 2 is Gunsmoke, channel 4 is Mannix, channel 5 is Petticoat Junction, channel 7 is Donna Reed, Now, see, some of our younger members, when I say that, they wonder, well, what is he talking about? But some of my more contemporary members understand those were the television shows that were on when I was growing up in the 50s and in the 60s. Because you see, I knew whatever was on any channel, any time of the day, any day of the week. Thank God they didn't have cable. Woo! There was one television show that I gravitated to that later became one of the guiding forces in my life. Some of you guys may remember this show. It was a show called Perry Mason. Perry Mason was a criminal defense attorney played by an actor named Raymond Burr. And Raymond Burr was one of the handsomest white boys I'd ever seen on television. He was tall, broad-shouldered, jet black hair that was slicked back. And I'm not talking about the later Raymond Burr after he was Ironside and he got all hefty and he's, all this. I'm talking about the young black and white series of Perry Mason. When he was, he was so sharp. He would walk around the courtroom with a certain command and a presence about him. He had these beautiful black suits. I think they were black. It was black and white television, so it was the dark suits that he would wear. And he would walk around with this command and presence, right? And I don't know if you remember Raymond Burr's eyes. He had these dark, piercing eyes. And he would always get near the end of the episode and his client was in jeopardy and it looked like all was lost. And he'd have this last witness on the witness stand and they'd be so confident or whatever. And his private investigator, Paul Drake, would come into the room with this little note that he would hand Perry, right? And then Perry would look at the note and then he'd just kind of square his shoulders, right? And then the witness would get nervous. And they would start to sweat and fidget around. And Perry wasn't having it. Perry would just close and he was like, Isn't it true that... Or somebody in the back of the courtroom would jump up, I did it. What? An alcoholic's dream, right? It just that never happened to any of you guys in the courtroom. Anyway, I digress. That's who I wanted to be. I wanted to be Perry Mason because Perry had power. He had the ultimate power to bend people's will to his simply by virtue of his words and his presence. And I thought, maybe I could do that. So I grew up wanting to be Perry Mason. I wanted to be a lawyer. As I grew up coming through school, I was a straight A student because my addiction to reading made me ready-made for school. I was the most articulate kid in all of my classes. I would get straight A. I was always the teacher's pet. She would always pick me to read the lessons. I was always real good at writing essays and exams because I had a vivid imagination from all those books and television and cartoons. And as I came through school, I was on the honor roll in junior high school. In high school, I was at a high school in South Central Los Angeles called Locke High School. When I got to Locke High School, I joined what was a world-famous marching band we had at the time, a marching band called the Locke High Marching Saints. And I played trombone and marched in what we called the front rank of the band. We marched in the Rose Parade. We raised funds to go to a parade in Hawaii called the Aloha Parade. And a number of us in that marching band formed a jazz band called the Msenji Workshop. And they had a battle of the bands at the Hollywood Bowl in Los Angeles. We went to the battle of the bands and we won sweepstakes. Voted one of the best jazz bands in the nation. I was voted my senior class president in the 12th grade at Locke High School. I got accepted to go to college on a full academic scholarship at a college called Loyola University. It's now called Loyola Marymount University. Small private Jesuit school located in Westchester, Los Angeles. And I'm a Southern Baptist kid, and I'm going to this Catholic college private school from the inner city on a full academic scholarship. It sounds like my life was full, right? Sound like I had all kinds of accolades. Sounds like I had all kinds of things happening for me, blessings, right? But you know something? I'm an alcoholic in waiting. It always seems like the things I have don't have the same value as the things that you have. The grass is always greener on the other side. My glass is never half full. It's always half empty. I can never enjoy my gifts because I'm too busy looking at yours. I never wanted to be no damn bookworm. I wanted to be an athlete. One of those guys scoring touchdowns that they were writing about in the LA Times, even though they were still in high school. The ones who had cheerleaders on the sidelines cheering for them. Nobody ever came in science class. Yes, Ronald, that's the right answer. I am sure, looking back on my life, there were people who told me I was cool, that I was fine, that I was all right. There were people who patted me on the back and stroked, but they didn't seem to pat me enthusiastically enough. That they didn't seem to thank me. I don't know. Somebody here know what I'm talking about. That no matter what it is that you give me, I am by my nature irritable, restless, and discontent. That I can never seem to fill the hole that is inside of me that I've always been trying to satisfy with all of these outside things. I graduated from Locke High School in 1972. And my